Hello, everyone. Happy Black Music Month and happy Pride Month. I hope everybody's enjoying Black Music Month and you're listening to Black music. You're checking out Black artists. And also for Pride Month, you're checking out LGBTQ plus artists and Black LGBTQ plus artists and all of those things. So today we're going to talk about a really famous album. It's the Notorious B.I.G's Ready to Die, which is his debut album. Which he has two albums that he made when, well, technically one actually. Uh, his other album, Life After Death, was actually released 16 days after he passed away. Which I feel like all these death themes. I don't know he was paranoid. Him and Tupac were both paranoid, but it's just really, it's a little unsettling. But so this, I listened to the remastered version of this album, and there's 19 tracks, and I did not feel like describing every single 19 of them. So I just did an overall message, and then I'm gonna talk about my favorite tracks, my least favorite tracks, my overall opinion, and I have a poem. So that's what we're gonna do. So the overall message I got from it. So from the intro, you hear Biggie being born. Yeah, they have like the baby sound effects, whatever. And then on the outro, you have his death, which we're gonna talk about more in detail. Just so it just shows like it's his whole life. I know it like on the cover it says it doesn't on the cover it says autobiographical, or does it say semi autobiographical? I know it's described as like semi autobiographical. Um, but yeah. So it showcases all the crimes he had to commit from drug dealing to robbing. He highlights that there aren't many options for black people where he's from or black people from the ghetto. So either you sell drugs or you are an athlete. Because I think he actually specifically says you're a basketball player, which is very sad. And it's kind of true. Like when you don't have enough resources and you're disenfranchised, you don't really have many options. Now it's like kind of the same: sell drugs, athlete, or become a rapper or singer. Um, But I know, like, definitely there are people who are success stories from these kind of environments. But of course, it's definitely harder than somebody with a different economic, I'm trying to say, economical background and environment background. For me, for example, I'm from the suburbs. Even though I'm black, I, in general, black people have less options. But because I'm not from the ghetto or the hood, it's very different for me, you know. In the album was a showcase of his life before and after fame. He does talk about his success and what he can do, what he can afford to do because of it, especially on Juicy and One More Chance. Um, and also showcased that even after achieving fame, he was ready to die and was still paranoid. Is still suffering with paranoia, I put. And I did say on Genius that Ready to Die for him. So Genius, if you don't know what it is, they have like explained the lyric videos by the artists that sing it, and then they explain it, and then it's also you go there and you can look up lyrics on their site. So they said that Ready to Die was for him was him ready to put his old life behind him, and then After Death, his second album, was his life after success after struggling for so long, which is really sad because it's supposed to be a celebration of like, yeah, I came from a really rough place, but now I'm successful, and then he gets killed before it even gets released. So, here are my favorite tracks. I'm gonna talk about that. So, two of them are technically singles, but I'm gonna say some other ones that are not singles. I think this one's a single, and it's like half because it said Big Papa slash Warning. So I guess they had. I think they and when I watched the video before, they had Warning at the end. So Warning is one of my favorite tracks. The flow and lyrics are all meld together well. You get a story from it and get a picture of what's happening, and also sort of sign of his paranoia, and the fact that people are after him. One More Chance, of course. Shows a different side of Biggie, makes him seem more approachable versus the tracks before it, because a lot of this album is really dark. And it seems like with money, he seems more confident um, with women. Because I think that one of the lines is like, "Heartthrob never black and ugly as ever." So he's like a dark skinned, big black man. But now that he has money, women are looking at him more. So yeah, like I said, he's not only have more options money wise, but also with women, which I've heard stories he was a notorious. Uh, what am I trying to say? Notorious. Notorious. He was. I feel like he was like a lover boy, like a ladies' man. That's what I'm trying to say. My brain just timed out. He was very much a ladies' man. Of course, we know he married Faith Evans, which apparently that wasn't a legal marriage. Because then when she got married to Stevie J, that was the only one that was a second one that was official. But I mean, hey, if they said they're married, they're married. So he was married to Faith Evans. He was with Little Kim, and apparently he's also with Charlie Baltimore. And I was like, I did not know that. I did not know that for a while until like a year or two ago, honestly. So yeah, he was doing all kinds of stuff. Okay, number three, my third favorite. These are not really technically in any order. This is just what I put as I was listening. So everyday struggle shows how he had to deal with drugs and to make ends meet. Goes into great detail, and his flow is great. He's very comfortable talking about death, though, which is very unsettling. But I mean, it's called "Ready to Die." I don't know what I was expecting. I don't know if I was not expecting to talk about death, but yeah. And then the last one that was my favorite, of course, is called "Suicidal Thoughts" because it couldn't get dark enough. So it was very intense and shows how he felt and his paranoia. It was very convincing how Diddy reacted. So they were on the phone and he's calling them, telling them all the things he's thinking. And of course, this would freak anybody out that got the call if their friend's suicidal. So Diddy, he was acting, like you would act if somebody called you. And when I was looking up the background on this song, so they have, spoiler alert, it's called Suicidal Thoughts. Yeah, it happens. And so after the gunshot, Biggie falls, right? And apparently in the studio, they literally had him fall. Like, he just threw his body on the ground. Which they were like laughing at it. And I'm like, after that whole song, y'all was laughing at that? Which, I mean, I guess it's funny, but for me listening to the song, it's like, whoa. But anyway. So I have my least favorite songs. So a friend of mine, just very negative towards women, even though he had a lot of women in his life. He seemed to me to have good luck. I don't know. He seemed like, even before the fame, he had a baby mama. He got somebody. But apparently not according to this track. He wasn't very lucky. But I do understand you could find bad people around you, and he did do a good job of storytelling in the story, because the girl, basically, a girl was with him, a girl was with his friend. That kind of thing. So just dreams playing. Now I'm not the whole song. It's like whatever. But two things that messed me up. The This is only on here because the Rainbow Simone line. Because that was weird even for back then. It's cause she was like a 9 when the album came out. And I feel like that should be something universally, no matter what time period you're in. Even in the 90s, that you would be like, I shouldn't put this line in. I mean, he had a bunch of wild lyrics, honestly, but that one really, grossed me out. And then he had a slightly homophobic line where he said, the women in Escape were ugly and he'd rather be with RuPaul. So I don't know if that's homophobic per se. It's weird, definitely, but I mean, he had a lot of wild lyrics. So that song's on there only because of those two things. I mean, he did apologize, apparently, like the day before he passed away, or before he was killed, technically. I read that he saw Tiny first, because Candy says she also saw him. So he did apologize to Tiny, and I think Tiny accepted it. But then when he apologized to Candy, I don't think she was really feeling it. But then she said, she had wish she had, which hey, she didn't know. Nobody knew what was gonna happen. Well, who knows? But nobody, only the people who killed him know what was gonna happen, right? So my overall opinion is the album was a lot darker than I expected, which, according to the title, I don't know why I wasn't prepared, but I wasn't. Um, but that doesn't mean it's bad. It has a lot of great storytelling and flow from Biggie. I went into it expecting some dark songs, but I got a rude awakening of how dark it really is. I will say it's definitely worth the listen. I think it's a pretty good album. Of course, not a lot is radio friendly. Which, when I was watching the documentary "Can't Stop, Won't Stop," that's one of the things they had a problem with trying to find. Was Bad Boy trying to find a new label to release Biggie's album on after Diddy got fired from Uptown, because they listened to the album, different labels, and was like, we can't put this out. So, but it seemed really raw and real, and Biggie was not shy about what he had done in his life. He was talking about everything, you know. So I will give it an 8 out of 10 because I think Biggie's storytelling and flow is amazing. Um, it doesn't have a lot of mainstream appeal besides Big Papa, Juicy, and One More Chance. Those were the 3 singles. But if you're thinking this album's gonna be just like those three, just I feel like if this would be, I listened to it all the way through, but maybe taking in chunks. That's what I would say. Um, but yeah, I mean, if Biggie's one of your favorites, though, I would say yes, definitely worth a listen if you haven't already. I'm sure if he's one of your favorites, you would have listened. Even though I feel like he's one of my favorite rappers, but I had not listened to the whole album, so I'm kind of a fraud. But it is what it is. So I wrote a poem. I wrote a tanka. So a tanka is like a haiku mixed with like, it's basically the beginning is a haiku and you add two extra lines. So a syllable count is 575 for a haiku, and then with a tanka, the last 2 lines are 7 syllables. 7 syllables, 7 syllables. Say that 7 times fast. Okay. So it's inspired by the song called "Warning," which was one of my favorites. It's called "Troubled Mind." I will say, if you count the syllables in the last line, it is over because I couldn't get my message across following the syllable count. So I did break it a little bit. How can you live like this? Constant paranoia, looking over your shoulder, never able to trust a soul, a huge burden to hold. So yeah, that's basically kind of like how I feel. Like, back then, especially back then, I still feel like now we have, especially with men, this idea that, you can't be emotional, which it's like you are being emotional when you're angry, when you're paranoid. Like you're having mental health episodes, but you don't want to seem weak. And I feel like that's just society's fault in general, especially because it's like a white supremacist ideology that, oh, men are tough, men are this, men are that. And so I feel like even if Biggie maybe had went to a therapist or something, I wonder if that would have been something he would have talked about though, because and I've seen interviews of him talking about him being paranoid, talking about he thinks someone's going to kill him, especially after Tupac got killed. So it's kind of like, like music was his outlet, but it also feels like, I mean, of course, could we go back in time and not have him or Tupac be killed? I don't know. We don't have time machines yet. But I mean, I'm wondering if they could have ever been. I just feel like it was like a whole huge thing with the East Coast, West Coast. So I feel like there would have been, I don't know, maybe no way for them to reconcile. Maybe I'm not really sure. But and then I want to talk about Who Shot Ya because that came out. So here's the story. Tupac, the first time he got shot, 5 times. He was at a studio, and I guess the guy who asked him to come to the studio also knew Diddy and Biggie. So, of course, you just get shot, you're very probably very paranoid. I would be, you know. So then when he's so basically somebody came to the studio, tried to rob him. They shot him, and when he was coming out on the the ambulance, I forgot what they call it, the bed. They're wheeling him out. He sees Diddy and Biggie, so he's like suspicious because they were in the same studio. But then a few months later, Who Shot Ya came out, and so I think he definitely thought that Biggie definitely had something to do with him getting shot, which I just feel like it was just horrible timing. I don't think that Biggie really, I don't think Biggie would have wanted anything to happen to Tupac. That's just me. I don't know. I don't use Ouija boards. I can't go and ask Biggie. You know what I'm saying? But from what I remember seeing him in interviews and seeing him being paranoid and seeing him, how he was reacting during the time, like it didn't really seem like he would have wanted anything to happen to Tupac. But hey, now it is what it is, unfortunately. Um, but yeah. So that's so funny because last week I talked about Tupac's poetry book, and this week I'm talking about Biggie's album. So, but yeah, have you listened to the album? Did you enjoy it? Did you find it really dark and you were like, dang, this is intense? Or were you like, hey, this is fine for me? Let me know. And I hope you all enjoyed this video and enjoyed my poem. So I will see you all next week.